Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is the Happy Cat here, and it's been a while since I've talked to the camera kind of face to face. So, welcome back to me and you, I guess. I'm just gonna try to settle in, not over edit myself, not press the stop button and make too many cuts. I was actually almost just going to only record the audio like I did in my last video where I told you guys all about Nova, my horse, and all the work we've been doing together. That really helped me get over the hurdle of just making something. But I figured, you know what, let's get over the next hurdle. Let's turn on the video camera and just start talking, because I've had a lot of thoughts on being a developer in the AAA industry, trying to balance personal side game projects, what this YouTube channel should be, my thoughts on tech in general, kind of where I'm going, how I've developed as a person, even just thoughts on finances and criticisms I have of certain financial movements and financial channels and advice, just because when you're in the tech world, you see a lot of those types of things. And I thought, oh, that might be an interesting video to make that isn't exactly like game projects focused, because when I started this channel, I was in college. So I'm just kind of reflecting back. Yeah, let's say this video is me looking back on, it's almost to the month I've been a developer, like in a professional software engineer for 4 years. And I've been developing games and game-like projects for at least 6 or 7 years, maybe longer if you count some really basic stuff I did in high school and middle school. But I've felt enough of a personal shift and personal growth that I really just want to sit down and look back. So as I was saying, I started this YouTube channel when I was a college student, and it was something that kind of motivated me to learn in my free time. So there were certain things that I'd learn and then make a YouTube video about, and it was like fun for me to learn it and think about how I could best present a project and teach it to someone else. And the other videos that were very successful were basically me taking my college courses and cutting through the fat of it, so to speak, and making a video that just clearly explained what I actually took away after I, crammed for finals and did these big complicated projects. Clear example of that, even though this is probably, I don't know, not a video I'm known for, but the MIPS assembly code video I made, that was really all I took away from my computer architecture and hardware classes. Not that it's not interesting or important, it just wasn't my focus area. So even though I had to do all of this complicated stuff with circuits and programming stuff in assembly, really just the basics of knowing like, hey, my C# can boil down to these kinds of commands was all I needed to know. So I made a quick YouTube video on it, and that was one of my favorite videos to read the comments on, because I think it genuinely helped people out, and it wasn't just helping people get through like a homework assignment or something like that. I felt like people genuinely like cut through some confusion and learned something. And that's what I really enjoyed about making YouTube videos, was that it would actually help people. And I think then I started to really want to go from, okay, I have a lot of foundational skills. This was maybe in my first year of working, the year I graduated from college. That was when I had the most growth in this channel. And I was also trying to look at, and this is an all too common pattern, once you see some success in your channel, like you're thinking more, what do people want to see? And maybe what are trends? Like at the time, No Man's Sky came out. So I thought, hey, like let's explain procedural generation. There's some really interesting math behind that. And I don't think that's wrong by any means. Like, that is how you kind of should structure a business around making content. Like, you should look at trends and what people want to see as one dimension of how you decide to make things. But that's the thing, that's more of a business. Whereas I remember what gave me so much joy, genuinely, was I remember I had like 10 subscribers, and I think my first ever real comment was from, like, I'm presuming a kid who didn't understand C++ and just asked, can you make a video on C++? And I did, and that video ended up being, like, if you type C++ into YouTube, it was on the front page. It was the first or second result you'd get, and it was above, oh no, I forget his name. I saw him speak at my university. The guy who basically created C++, Bjarne Strustrup. Sorry, you can tell I really am not prepping for this video, which is good. That's what I need. But yeah, it was even above his talk on C++, because I think I just named it like top 10 things you should know when learning C++. And I think that was a very catchy title, but it was literally intended for like this tiny, tiny audience. And so I think I unlisted it at this point because I didn't want to misrepresent anything. And yeah, that was a major concern back then as well. I think I found it so hard to make any videos or post anything at all because I was so concerned that if I couldn't make the content perfect and the type of knowledge I was sharing, like, I'd need to vet it a bunch of times, maybe even have someone else knowledgeable look at it, because it was just really embarrassing if you get something wrong or you miss a key part. Or I've seen other kind of tech coding tutorial channels fall into this. Basically, the best videos are ones where you have a lot of genuine life experience knowledge and you boil it down to the most important parts. Those are my most successful videos, just in terms of the ones that I thought were the best and seemed to help people the most. And it's really hard to keep making those because, you know, a couple of my videos are one semester courses boiled down to about 5 to 8 minutes. And I just started to run out of those. And I had this moment where I had, you know, an upward trend, and I had the choice to kind of try to keep going with that. And I actually saw other very similar channels to mine at the time face a similar trend that did keep going. And I saw them run into the situation I was concerned about, which is sort of running out of things that you can teach people from your life experience that are authentic, and not just making it your full-time job to learn something in your free time and then go turn around and teach it. Those were the videos I won't say least proud of. They weren't bad, but they had the least depth, is when I would kind of teach myself and turn around and try to, you know, teach an audience with a very quick turnaround. So yeah, I didn't want to just run out of ideas. I also did not want to, you know, scrape at the bottom of the barrel. I've seen some, you know, videos out there on YouTube that it would say like how to do deep learning in 5 minutes, and it's like import a Python library and press button, and you know, so yeah, I just was running out of ideas that made me happy. And as if you followed my channel, I wanted to pursue more of like, hey, I want to make my own game. At the time, Undertale and Toby Fox, he released Undertale around the time I launched my channel, and that was like a huge source of inspiration. And I'll be honest, it's not even because I was a deep fan of Undertale specifically, but just the quality of it for so much of the different creative aspects being made by one person was very inspiring to me as a creator. Like super high quality music, even just the simple but like unified aesthetic of the art style. I know he had help with the art, but still, like, he got himself going probably on his own. And then, yeah, using Game Maker, if you don't know how to like code in depth, like, that's a great choice. Um, all these things. And I was just like, I know, I'm definitely not as good of a composer as him, but I know, music pretty well. I can make placeholder art, and that can be put in later. I know coding really in depth, and I know how to implement like interesting mechanics through my own code. And like, I felt like I did have all the pieces there. Um, but it's, I feel like games are, people say when you try to write a novel, it's one of the hardest things you can do. And I feel like games are in that category of like psychically difficult projects to undergo, because it's just a unification of all of your creativity in one incredibly complicated project. So it's not just your creativity, it's your technical skills, your organizational skills, the maturity of knowing when you've gone too deep in a hole, when to cut things off, and so on. Games are one of the most interesting and difficult projects you could ever try to do, which is why it's so hard, and which is why, YouTube videos on it are popular or interesting. But yeah, I did set a challenge to at least try to make something, even though I was working, a full-time job that took a lot of time. And your first thing when you get home isn't, your first thought is not that you want to go sit on your computer and keep clicking at things and fiddling with bugs and making stuff work. But I set up a system. It was the video I made that was called like, I made a game in 6 months, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I made it in 6 months while working full time and doing other things. And it was made over 6 months with about 15 to 30-minute sort of sessions. So that's why it took 6 months. It wasn't like, I probably could have done it, in a week-long game jam sort of thing, but 15 to 30 minutes was about the amount of focus I had, getting home at night. So that was a really, really awesome experience, because I still really like some of the characters there, even though that's the other thing. Games have, music, graphics, programming, but writing is also a huge, one of my big passions. And so I really wanted to make a game where narrative could be part of the mechanic. So that's where I made that detective game demo. And I still really like the characters and some story ideas that definitely didn't show up in that silly demo it was about like who stole the lemon cookies, something like that. Yeah, so I actually had a huge amount of backstory and some interesting stuff that maybe I'll come back to. I don't know. I realized we'll go through my journey, but I realized sometimes it's just fun to play with characters, even if no one sees it in some published work. And yeah, but I think for the next few years after that, let's see, well, then I, joined my next endeavor at Microsoft, working on fun AAA titles, which is where I'm still at. And I'll say for the past few years where I haven't been posting anything, I've been working and growing a lot. And I guess that's all I'll say on projects with this fellow in it. Is, yeah, I've been working a lot, and it's been a pretty incredible experience. And that's all I'll say in terms of AAA game industry stuff for now, because really, I don't know, I still have a passion for making stuff that's my own, whether it's videos, whether it's my personal projects, and I just want to keep pursuing that and kind of having that space in my free time. And I realized that I So one thing, well, Toby Fox and also like the Stardew Valley guy, what's his name? It's like an ape, a something ape, a gorilla. I don't, I forget his alias, but another like mostly solo person. I, for various psychological reasons, started feeling pressure like, oh, as a creator, I need to be able to, like, I don't know, like looking back, I don't know why I even had this thought, but I had so much pressure, like, I must be working on something in my free time because what's the point if I'm not sort of like planting a creative seed and producing a project? And when I say what's the point, it's not, I didn't have any particular goal other than like, oh, a big meaning in my life is I just want to make, something finished, like some finished story that I can share with people and that sort of expresses my, I don't know, innermost emotions or opinions. And that's something you find out quickly when you say you want to like write a novel or make a game or something like that, that sometimes you have these like whiffs of ideas, but as soon as you really try to, um, write it on paper, make a clear design that you could write in code right now, make a prototype in like a day, write a story where the characters actually have to do believable things and feel emotions. You're like, oh, that wasn't that wasn't really an idea. It was just, this sort of wispy thing that maybe I'll return to, maybe I won't. So I had lots of wispies that I was kind of pressuring myself, like maybe this could be something awesome. Like you just need to set aside the time and kind of have the discipline. And why am I not doing this or that? And I think I definitely missed the point there. And that's why I became paralyzed enough that I was like, well, I feel like I can't even make content because I'd want to brand it. I like know the level of quality I could do, and I want to make it like, supreme, where I was even imagining myself like, having all this filming equipment and filming things outside and, I don't know, like outside in the mountains of Washington State and stuff like that, which is a massive hurdle to make yourself do just to make coding tutorials and stuff. And same with the game. I just had these huge high standards. I think there's an Ira Glass quote. I feel like I might have already said all this in the last video I made, but there's an Ira Glass quote that's like, oh, I forget the exact words. It's like, if you have really awesome taste and you really consume a lot of a certain type of art, you naturally hold yourself to the standard of your taste, and then that just freezes you because you don't allow yourself to just sort of, scribble on a page and then just keep iterating on it. Instead, you just kind of cry at your scribble and curl up in a ball, and in my case, go back to anxious patterns. So I think I really started to externalize my problems from there. I think the last couple years has been me just slowly undoing how much I would externalize why I couldn't do things, why I couldn't get things done, things I needed to happen before I could do other things. Like I don't have enough time. Like, how can I create more time for myself? Like, is there a way to make my daily schedule more accommodating? Blah, blah, blah. But I realized, at least for me, I know this may not be true for everyone, but my daily schedule is more than accommodating for, once again, I made that first demo 30 minutes in 30-minute segments per day. My schedule is definitely accommodating to have one more hour of focus to work on stuff that I find interesting. And it really just comes down to anxious habits like, oh, I'm gonna, be on social media sites like Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, checking email. I'm going to, work more because I'm doing something interesting, but I'm going to let my, professional working hours sort of bleed into personal hours by choice, just because it fills up those portions of time where I don't really want to be unproductive, but I also can't bring myself to, almost work up the courage to do these creative things that I say I want to do. And I realized those are really like anxious loops. It was me not being willing to accept like this, that my skill level is where I'm at and I need to start from there and just map out what's the smallest step given where I'm at right now. And I think I was just not willing to mentally accept that, I was behind maybe where this standard in my head thought I should be. So I think instead of just allowing myself to be bored and sit and let my thoughts stew and sort of address different emotions that were going on in my brain. And I definitely had different, personal things happen, family, friends, even just, your ideals of youth slowly being chipped away at as you're an adult. Like I had lots of different thoughts, totally unrelated to like making a game and stuff like that. But I think it's very hard to just let yourself sit and be bored or let those thoughts come up and kind of intrude on your day and your mood. And I think I needed all of them to be cleared one by one before I could, work on anything creative. Because as soon as you get started, as soon as I would get started, I would just kind of freeze and get on to something else that was a waste of time. I guess I'll give another example besides just, I browsed social media, because that wasn't necessarily it. It would be like I wouldn't even want to play a video game or watch a show or watch a movie. Like I couldn't like start anything, but for a little while, because we were renting in kind of a high cost area, I got kind of obsessed with wanting to purchase just a place to live of some kind so we could at least kind of freeze our rent. And that's where I am now. We bought a place, which has been really super awesome. But it was the result of a lot of obsession where I have probably spent, I'm honestly willing to say like hundreds of hours of like, if I just had free hours at night, I would play a podcast and I would just click around real estate and schedule showings and things like that. And it wasn't, while the way we bought this house in the end was like a healthy process where, we were both in it together. It wasn't just me clicking and stuff. I would say I like approached the problem pretty unhealthily and used it to fill hours of my time, just because in a way it was something kind of mindless to once again externalize my problems to. Like, if we could just, get a house and control our costs, like this and this would line up and be easier with my other financial goals, which then align in this other very long-term way to investing in my creative goals. And it's kind of like, making these intricate systems for excuses as to why I don't want to pursue these creative things that I say that I want to do so badly. But apparently not. Apparently I didn't enjoy anything about the process of doing those creative things if I was doing everything possible to like mentally avoid them. So I think in order to even pretend to pursue creative activities, even in that like bare bones 5-10 minutes a day, just to like get in a routine, I really needed to clear out a lot of a lot of stuff, a lot of junk in my head. And so a huge part of that helped me out was getting Nova. I think I did have a feeling of like, hey, I have this decent salary. I talked about this in my other videos. And after being able to at least try different interesting things, or like going out to eat in a nice restaurant, going on, a vacation to Europe, like different things that I think people want to do once they get money, which once again, money is like an external thing that can get you freedom, but it doesn't like grant you the solutions to all your problems. I just kind of decided that there aren't many things that I need with that salary. So I was like, okay, well, what's next? Besides paying for my high rent or mortgage, which could be fixed if I was in some lower cost area, like what else am I going to spend this money on? Once again, that's not the right way to look at the problem. But at the time, I was kind of, once again, trying to look for meaning, not through material things, but just like, what's the point of all of this and everything that I worked like so crazy hard for in school and the interviewing process? Like I was told, kind of, programmed as a kid growing up in, I don't know, upper middle class suburbs, that like, you should do this and you're going to be better off. And I don't know. This is what's so interesting. I feel like over the past couple of years, I've deprogrammed myself from I went to a very competitive high school and then to a competitive college program. I feel like I've been deprogramming myself from things that like at the time, I believed them to be so incredibly true just from the cultural, social influences around me, that I do think that my anxiety and stress triggered like it was a life or death situation. Like either you make it or, there was no middle ground. It was just like, you will die in I don't know, in a terrible way. And where was I? So let's see, going back to, oh yeah, I've been deprogramming myself, because now it just sounds silly to be like, it sounds silly now that I've actually been able to live the experience and in my own skin, like see what all of this is all about and realize like, oh yeah, that making it to an awesome career, like that's not your answer to maybe any negative feelings you have inside. You're still you. You take yourself with you wherever you go. And yeah, so I was still kind of looking at the problem, my negative feelings, as an external thing. Like, okay, I'm making money. I've tried these different things that people apparently spend money on. They were fun. I don't regret anything. I didn't do anything like crazy or irresponsible. It was just, oh, I don't see any of this as being my answer or something I want to keep doing. I definitely both my boyfriend and I quickly realized like, okay, let's just, we don't know exactly what our goals are yet, but let's just save a lot, because that can't be a bad choice. So we've been pretty heavy savers and investors, and yeah, it got to the point where it's like, once you're saving 70-80% of what you make, you're kind of like, I don't know, what am I doing? So that's when I got Nova, and I explained all of that. And I'm sure I told kind of the same story in the video I did a few months ago when quarantine first hit. And that experience, I think, was the catalyst for me really aggressively deprogramming and unwinding my thoughts, because Nova was like so honest, but not in a, once again, I tell this story, but she is not like a calm horse that like shows you your inner peace. It was because she was so difficult and honestly dangerous that I had to be really real about like what my expectations were. And, I couldn't push her buttons. I had to be totally fair, and I had to learn her language and how to talk to a horse. I couldn't expect her to like meet me halfway and be nice because I was trying to be nice to her or something like that. Um, yeah, so that experience taught me a lot about like, hey, for, 6 to 8 months, I thought I had bought like a horse I could ride, but I couldn't ride her at all. I just did lots of work on the ground and building our relationship. And it really started to untangle like I was so upset that like I had bought this horse that I thought I could ride right away, that I even spent a little more thinking she had this better training. I didn't know what I was doing back then. Once again, all this is described in the video, but I was really upset. Like, oh my gosh, can I even send her to a new home if she has all these dangerous behaviors? Um, and, I had to slowly just scale back my expectations to, wow, I thought we'd be ready to go within the first week or two with the normal things I did when I rode horses in lessons. But actually, I'm going to spend 8 months with my feet on the ground, and she's going to do some things that'll really scare the heck out of me. But eventually, I will be able to override my own stress response. And even if, she tries to kick out or run away, like eventually, and even now, I do have the skills to handle different behaviors. Maybe not in all horses, but I at least know how she works. And it's thanks to, the fact that I really took my time and I was honest with, hey, today I need to lead her on a rope, and we need to practice that she just stops when I stop, because that didn't happen for a month or two. She would try to like run away. This was kind of long-winded. I think I tell it better in the other video. I'm just trying to say that like it was a deeply emotional experience, because it's so hard when it's this animal that's totally reliant on you and they kind of hate you and you're afraid of them. So it was this deeply emotional experience, and yeah, it sent me to therapy. It forced me to kind of do something diligently every day, where I was away from like the tech world, like business professional wise, and away from technology, like my computer and social media and so on. And now that we're in an awesome place, honestly, like we were in a pretty good place when I last made that video, because we had reached some milestones. So I thought, okay, I can make the video that like we did it, like we broke through a year of like, hardship. And now she's doing even more awesome. Like all of that intelligence and energy. I guess it's almost 6 months since I made that video, is it? I don't even know what time is anymore. But yeah, now we're not just like stopping, going and stopping. We're like doing more advanced dressage stuff. So, let me know. I'd like to make a video on that, but once again, I have all these mental blocks on getting the equipment set up to make horse videos, but I'd love to do that. And I was thinking about how to like best sort of pivot this channel, which I'll get to that, to just things I'm interested in, such as horses. But yeah, so I think over the last 6 months, I've started to really open myself up and personally grow, really over this like quarantine, where I obviously had, like as many people probably did, a pretty like intense feeling of anxiety and just general hopelessness, and like, man, the world doesn't feel good. There's so much going wrong. And, for the first part of quarantine, now I don't even remember when I made that video, if I already mentioned this, but I couldn't see Nova for like a month, like 6 weeks. And it was just because of super strict regulations with lockdown at our barn, and I think they could have found a different solution, but whatever. It was really hard though because I had to completely change my routine, and I used like genuinely a lot of yoga to sort of just have something to do that was exercise that was inside. But I found even more um, sorry, I'm gonna try to be unedited here. Sometimes when I don't quite know where my sentences are going, or kind of what the thought's leading to, or I get a thought that says like, hey, you're not on topic, you're rambling too much, you would be bored if you were watching this. Sometimes I get a thought like that, and then I stop mid-sentence, and then I either stop the take and don't post the video, or I, pause like I just did, try to think of something and try to decide if I should cut the whole thing together, whether this is like a take that I'll edit in. But I promised that I would try to keep like editing to a minimum, and that I would try to be really honest, because I'm not interested in like, right now I just don't have the time and mental space to make really clean edited content that provides kind of a service to you. I just want to talk and know, even for myself, that I can post this like honest moment, and that nothing crazy will happen, because I think that will help with my mental block. Anyway, yeah, so going back, I did a lot of yoga, which I think I had always associated more with exercise than the mindfulness, but without trying to like pursue mindfulness and things like that, I found that it was the one thing that has improved my mental state more than any other change to my life, besides perhaps Nova, which I think Nova and horses also force you to practice mindfulness, because you have to be there every second to, for your own safety. Like, is the horse going to turn to kick? Are her ears pinned? Like, you have to be present every single moment. Same with yoga, except instead of sort of giving all of myself to this animal, because I have to be 100% there for her, I can't expect her to give the same back to me. Yoga was really, I don't know, this sounds like a cheesy word. It was really healing to me, because it was that place where I could be alone with my thoughts and sort of be able to untangle them, or let a lot of them just disappear by the end of, honestly, I don't even do that crazy of sessions. Like some people, that was the other thing. I never wanted to do yoga because I had only experienced it in classes that are 60 to 90 minutes. I would just do like, honestly, 10 to 20 minute YouTube videos, and it would be like mind blowing how like effortlessly I'd go and just do the dishes with this like loving clarity, and like look out the window and see a spider web and just think like, oh, I don't know, I'm not trying to say like I'm hashtag deep, but it felt like I really could appreciate the tiniest details and just have this great, quality of, when you wake up and you just feel like you're not alive yet. And then when you kind of get up and moving, sometimes just as simple as like driving somewhere outside your house, like you just feel like the blood is returned to your body. like just getting the blood in my body and having a good quality of breath, like just 10 minutes of doing that immensely changed my day. Like it was almost upsetting how small of a change it took, and how it just took me going like, I wake up in the morning like many people do, immediately check all of my electronic things. And sometimes you can get stuck there, right? Like if you don't have to be anywhere, especially in quarantine, for, let's say you have an hour of free time, you could spend that whole hour just like futzing around on your stuff, your online stuff. And so just being able to interrupt that and do something that was good for me in the real world, and not just like fill my brain with stuff. Like that's what my theory for me is, that like the reason why social media is addicting, there's a variety of things around advertising, so on. I think it's just that like it fills your brain with stuff other than what's in your brain if you were to sit still, I know that that's true for me. That's why I would like obsessively look up real estate prices and things like that, because it just filled my head with like anything external. You start to realize is so much easier to achieve than to just like fix your own head. Like I'm sure many of you have heard the hedonic treadmill, where you get your first car and you think, wow, that's amazing, and you just want to keep upgrading. You buy your first house, you see flaws, you want to keep upgrading your house, and so on. But really, you take yourself with you, and that's maybe the source of a lot more of your problems. So yeah, so I did a lot of yoga, and now even today I did my routine with the horses. They're out on the pasture, which has been really awesome in the summer. They got to eat grass 24/7. They got this huge field to live in, and so I have to pick up their poop and toss some hay in now that it's getting towards the end of the season. There isn't much grass, and they're jumping in blackberry brambles in desperation to like eat the leaves, I guess, and they've come back with scratches. So yeah, we're tossing hay in there. Anyways, I actually have so many silly stories of them out in that field. But I did my horse routine today, and but before it, I made sure to do a session of like yoga, and not necessarily meditation, because I feel like that's a weirdly loaded word in the like self-help discipline tech world. Just like doing stuff that's good for me, that is like super low dopamine and super high awareness, before going to see the horses. And when I don't have this, like I'm gonna be honest, I don't do yoga mindfulness things every day, but my goal is that I'll get better and better at interrupting my cycles more frequently, so that I do it every day. Or even twice a day, like get a reset point multiple times a day, so my stress levels don't keep amping up, that I'm constantly resetting. But on days where I don't do that, it's so interesting, because once again, the horses are so honest. I just genuinely don't perform as well with the horses, or I find that we have more issues of like, weird things happening, like, oh, this one slipped past me in the gate and ran away and I have to go catch her. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens when I don't actively practice mindfulness. I don't know, maybe that's an extreme example. The horses don't escape. It's not like if I don't do a down dog, the horses escape. But that did happen one day. I was kind of absent-minded, and I opened the gate to let one in, and the other flew out and made friends with everyone in all the other fields. Anyway, yeah, so I guess that's about where I'm at. I kind of decided not to try to make videos once again in that business or content as a service sort of way. I once again don't have the mental space for that right now, and there's a lot that I find super interesting about programming and projects I'd like to do and things like that, but I just don't have any topics that are burning that I want to communicate here. Maybe like at something like GDC. Like there's different ideas I'd have for more industry folks, just because like I guarantee even if people would say like, oh no, but I'd find that interesting, it's like there's a lot of GDC talks that I think the average person would not find interesting and are very like kind of insular in these niche topics. So yeah, I don't really feel like making videos on ultra niche stuff right now. So maybe in a professional capacity, I could make something like that. Otherwise, I think I just want to make stuff and share that, like make a game, make some creative work and share that, maybe share some of the process, but I'm also not super interested in like, setting stuff up to document, like, let's say if I was to make a game like day 1, day 2, or week 1, month 1, like just setting all the infrastructure up to document it and to actually finish it and not, that's the other thing I was so paralyzed about was like, oh, if I start projects like that, I know I'm not going to finish it and it'll be on camera like, oh, hey, I'm on, my game project part 7 and then, it never continues beyond that. So yeah, I guess going on to things that I'm actually doing creatively, I've decided not to work on a game, even though I just said that, because I think I've tried so hard at so many ideas that never make it to camera that are in my notebook or in my personal like computer of prototypes that I didn't really care enough to finish properly. Yeah, I think at this point it's just I have so many bad like thought loops around like, is this good enough? Is this fun enough? Is this even worth doing? Is this a story that means something to me? Blah blah blah. I think I have so many negative or unhelpful loops that I just need to do other things. I also have a lot of work to do at work, so I kind of want to leave a lot of, mental space separate from coding. Even you get like wrist and shoulder aches, like this right side is so much stronger than this puny left side because of my mouse arm. Actually, it's interesting. So the other thing that I've decided not to keep pursuing, because this was my backup, I was like, okay, if a game doesn't work, I'll write a novel or like, a story, something like that. And if the story's good enough and if I snowball with it, then I'll just translate that into a game. Because I know whatever game I wanted to make would have just some interesting story surrounding it, because I am really passionate about that. And I created so many more negative thought loops with that as well. Like, once again, trying to hold myself to the standard of my taste, of my favorite authors of like all different genres. And it also, maybe here's another example when I say like deprogramming stuff from your past. As a kid, when I was in the 4th grade, I remember specifically, I loved reading and I loved writing. And I had one story that I wrote continuously through the entire year. And to this day, I've never written anything more unified or more just like genuine since then. It was about 100 or 120 like 12-point word pages. And yeah, that was the most of any single thing I've ever written in my life, was when I was 10. And so you could say at that time, like I am willing to say, yes, I was probably well above average in reading and writing for a 10-year-old. And perhaps if I developed that, I would be some awesome author now. But for whatever reason, whether it was, anxieties developed all the way back in middle school or loss of time and interest and so on, I didn't continue on that snowball, but I continued with this idea that, oh, I'm good at writing and I should try to pursue that in my free time whenever I can. Or I think even when I was a teenager in high school, early on in college, I felt bad if I couldn't, if I wanted to write something but had writer's block or couldn't get started, because I still hung on to this idea like, but I'm supposed to be good at this. That was the thing I was good at that like people praised me for. And I think even now as this like grown adult, I still had this idea like, oh, of course writing a novel will be my backup. That's been my thing. I'll just write the thing and that'll give me enough of a structure to just make into a game, which is coding is now my other thing. And I think that's just not true. I just haven't spent enough time writing for real and like practicing in the way that I put hours into just my horse learning how to stop and go. You know, I spent hundreds of hours on that. I have not spent that amount of time on writing. So I've certainly spent some time, but I don't think the amount of effort necessary to like call it my thing anymore. Yeah. So it's been really interesting because in only the last like few weeks or so, I had one of those ideas that I wanted to write about, one of those like novel / maybe a game ideas. And my boyfriend is really good at drawing, at least in my opinion. I think he's an awesome artist. He was like going between electrical engineering and like art school, maybe not super seriously, but like he totally could have gotten into art school and stuff like that. So we had this idea like, hey, let's just like write a comic. I think I was just watching Tower of God on Crunchyroll because I remember my senior year of high school, we were all reading, like webtoons were the hot thing about 10 years ago. So I was watching Tower of God and getting all nostalgic. And then we were like, wait, we were just talking about how much we love, there's a very specific genre. It's like Tower of God, Hunter x Hunter, like these shows with these massive casts of really like wild fighter type characters. If you guys have seen these shows, you'll know what I mean. Like they have some test, or like even One Piece maybe falls into this, some sort of test or object people are all looking for. And it just opens this possibility to like hundreds of diverse, crazy characters where the magic of the realm can kind of be bent in different ways. Like in Hunter x Hunter, there's a guy with like pins all over his head, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's a guy. And then there's just like a clown, and then there's just like a child who can sniff and has a fishing pole. Like, you know, like I just really like all the possibilities with that. So I kind of had a premise that allowed for a similar sort of thing, that you could have a huge diverse cast of characters, but I wanted to make it a novel just because I thought that would require the least amount of work, because you just type words instead of having to like create a game or create assets. But it was so interesting because I thought, okay, for fun comic that we just do together on a Sunday afternoon with no intention of even showing it to anyone or anything. As I started to convert the stuff I had written in novel form into sort of a storyboard, once again, I'm not good at storyboarding, but it was so much easier, or like, I'm not going to say I'm not good at it. I just literally have never tried to make a comic before, but it came so much more fluidly for me to structure everything in a storyboard just because I had no like preconceived notion of how I should be doing this and how good I should be at it, because I was just like, I'm not good at drawing and I've never done this before. We're just doing this because it's a fun way we can share our skills. Like I write a story and he draws. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's getting really easy to figure out what happens next in this story I had writer's block on, and just, you know, intense, like, it's hard to get started to write, not just writer's block, like writer's anxiety paralysis, I don't know. But it was getting easier and easier to figure out what should happen next when I put it in the context of a storyboard, just because I had zero programming around that. I don't think it means that my storyboard is super like awesome and like up there with the pros or anything like that. It's just that I was able to actually put something on a paper, which once again, kind of like how yoga was like upsettingly simple of 10 minutes of yoga was upsettingly simple of a change for the amount of benefit I got. In the same way that like doing this thing I had literally never once tried before and had written off as something that I wasn't going to be good at was far easier to actually get things done for the project than all of these things that I had put. I wouldn't even say I worked hard at. Like I worked hard, and then I think I also just spun my wheels with like just wasted energy. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe you don't. But yeah, I would say that's been another big theme. Like just because you put effort into something doesn't mean you made progress for yourself, doesn't mean you actually made progress in a project. Like you can burn a lot of wasted energy on all sorts of things and stressors and people. So that's actually, I was about to think like, what's the uplifting solution I can provide to you all? It's actually where the mindfulness and breathing and mindful exercise has helped me, because like you are able to just stop yourself and check in with like, is this wasted energy? Is this a good use of my time? Is there another way to do this? And once again, even with horses, I find that it's not my physical fitness or me not knowing what to do if I face a difficult situation. Now it's just, I can get so caught up in like you want to do a particular movement. Let's say we're trying to go from trot to canter. So trot's the gait where you see them kind of do a bit of a bounce. If you've played video games, you should know the gaits of your horse: walk, trot, canter. I guess in Western riding, they call it walk, jog, and lope. But one thing you practice is like the trot to a canter depart. I'm doing like, it's a 2-beat gait to a 3-beat gait. And so they kind of have to push off with their inside hind leg to get your canter going. And while it looks in a video game or in any professional rider like really fluid, like they just, ask and the horse just goes off into this faster pace. In reality, they aren't always balanced. They don't always want to go to the faster pace. They're like, why do I have to do more work? Sometimes it can be hard for them, especially if they're young babies, to even coordinate their legs to put them in the right order. So you get stumbles. In Nova's case, she would trot really, 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 really fast and then maybe do it. And that was because she found it hard to balance herself without a ton of momentum carrying her. Anyway, sorry, I like talking about horse things to anyone who will listen, and I've held you hostage in this video, I guess, if you're already here this far along. And so, sometimes I'll get caught up in like, I want a really good canter depart. I want to really feel the foot, the hind leg come down and push off and have this really soft rolling feeling. And sometimes I can get so caught up in that like we do 3 or 4 that aren't good, that have this messy trot that get me tense, where like I'm realizing my shoulders are creeping up. I'm like not in my best mindset. And yeah, I find that my greatest limiting factor is like, how soon can I say, hey, we had one not so good one. Let me stop here and try to set us up for success. Like, let's not do more than one not good one, because if we do 2 to 3 to 4, we're just going to be kind of like spamming a button, so to speak. Like I'm just going to keep asking and asking, and it won't change. I need to adjust something before we go again, and it's not great again. And a huge part of that is because I don't want to ask this like living, breathing, thinking, opinionated creature to just keep doing things on my behalf if I'm not a very good or mindful or fair leader. And I realize that that's also how I have to treat myself. I just had a thought of how, it's like we have to be a leader of ourselves, because it's like we have this part of our brain that's really trying its best to help us out. Like it gives us anxiety and stress because it believes some of these things in the modern world, that really aren't that bad, are equated with like death. Like I said, like if you don't get into the right college or get the right job, like in some cultures and circles of at least where I grew up, like you you definitely will not die and you have lots of options left, but your brain is programmed to trigger your like death chemicals because we're just so far removed from the need to survive with like industrialized food and stuff. And so I was just thinking about how like you have that part of the brain, and I think that's the same part that says like you're not good enough, you need to keep doing more. It's like this survival thing that's trying to help you. And then you have like your cells, which like what the heck? We have like mitochondria, proto organisms that just make up our body and are just chilling and helping us out. And then you have like the sensible part of your brain that's like, I want to do good things in the world and I believe I'm beautiful and I'm not going to listen to the negative survival part of my brain. And I was just thinking it's funny, I don't know, it's funny how we're like a bunch of different organisms trying to function together. So you need that like higher thinking part of your brain to be a kind leader for the rest of these weird organisms that are all trying to be you. So yeah, that was a lot of thought. So that's where my brain's been at lately. I've been doing mindfulness stuff. I've been cooking. I've been working on work stuff, horse stuff. And then that generally, if I like shower and do my laundry and those kind of things, by the end of the day, that like fills everything up. So yeah, on weekends now, I'm trying to look at this comic. I'm learning a little bit of music theory because music and composing music is something that has not been tainted for me yet. Classical piano has. I have lots of hangups about that because that's a whole other story. I almost pursued like a classical piano degree instead of an engineering degree and had all these, once again, things in high school of like not being good enough and stuff. So that's a little bit tainted, but I'm slowly enjoying it again. And, but I'm learning musical composition as well, because that's something that I never really seriously pursued. So I have a very fresh mindset towards it. So a little bit of music theory, a little bit of this comic idea I have, and otherwise just like letting myself kind of chill out more and just enjoy the good bits of life. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of alluded to it before, but I want to do something and feel the freedom. I guess I do have the freedom to do something different with this channel, but I also don't have intense motivation to like make a series or something like that. So I hope some of these thoughts were like helpful or interesting and that I can check in the future. I guess the only thing I didn't cover out of all the topics that were swirling around in my head before I sat down to record this was stuff on finance and more specific stuff around career and whatnot, which I'm sure people would be interested in, but I don't know, maybe I still need to stew on that a bit because I want to have like a healthy, confident, helpful conclusion on some of those thoughts. But I think the overall principles I mentioned today are what I'd really want to communicate, that your like internal, what you cultivate internally is going to matter far more than like specifics on career and finance and things like that. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.